Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. Great to have you joining us here on the show today. Excited about our guest, Chase Anderson. Chase is a pitcher with the Toronto Blue Jays and pitched for a few seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers prior to that. He was actually drafted and selected by the Arizona Diamondbacks in the 2009 MLB Draft in the 9th round, signed with the D-backs, and was making his Major League Baseball debut May 6, 2014 with Arizona. Allowed 1 earned run on 2 hits and 5 1/3 innings of work, and he got the win in his debut. And he pitched pretty well in 2015. And then January of 2016, Chase was traded to the Milwaukee Brewers in a 5-team deal. And in May of 2017, against his old team, Arizona, he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning, and another fellow Sports Spectrum alum, Nick Ahmed, broke up Anderson's no-hit bid. Pitched a couple years in Milwaukee, and then Toronto comes calling. November 4th, 2019, Chase Anderson was traded to the Blue Jays in exchange for Chad Spanberger, and now Chase looking for the 2020 season to be a solid contributor for the Toronto Blue Jays in their starting rotation. Chase is a great guy, a great man of faith, and I think you'll enjoy hearing his story, especially over the past year and what God has done as he's moved on from Milwaukee to Toronto and getting ready for the 2020 season. It's an interesting time for Chase Anderson in his journey as a Major League Baseball player. But let's take a listen to him and his story here on Sports Spectrum. Chase Anderson, welcome back to Sports Spectrum.
No, it's good to be back. It's fun to do this live.
Yeah, and we're doing it at a conference in Florida, and you now are a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. When we last talked, you were the Milwaukee Brewers pitcher, and suddenly a trade happened. So how does it feel? Is it still a little foreign and weird when I call you Toronto Blue Jays pitcher Chase Anderson?
Yeah, that hasn't really sunk in yet. I think by the time spring training gets here and you get the uniform on and that kind of stuff, it's going to feel more real. But I'm looking forward to the new opportunity and the new challenge of getting up and moving again and going through the trade process again. But it's nothing new, and like I said, I'm looking forward to representing a city as well as a country, going to Canada. And I've heard nothing but great things about Toronto and the people there, so we're looking forward to it.
It's a great city. They got a great fan base, a lot of history there. But this is not the first time that you've been traded, and both the times I believe that you've been traded have been in the off season.
Yes.
You've been around this game a while, and you've seen guys get traded in season. What's the difference between being traded in an off season versus an in season on all the levels that would have to be required for adjusting?
Yeah, the first time I got traded, I was actually at my best man's wedding. I take pictures and I get a phone call that I'm traded to the Brewers, and we were leaving actually the next day to go to spring training. My wife's first question was like, "Where's spring training? We have our place in Arizona." I was like, "Luckily, it's still in Arizona. We get to stay in the same place." So I was like, "That was good." And then this time, as my son's 3rd birthday, get a phone call in the morning and from the Brewers GM, David Stearns, that I get traded to the Blue Jays, and kind of thanks me for everything I did for the Brewers, all that kind of stuff. Just the normal stuff, and being traded is part of the game, part of the business as you play longer. It's bittersweet, obviously, because my time in Milwaukee will be cherished. We made the playoffs 2 out of 3 years, or 2 out of 4 years, almost 3 out of 4 years. So that's a goal, obviously, as a player to get into the postseason, and we got deep in 2018. So but getting traded in the off season, I guess it gives you a little bit more time to plan. With family, and we have pets and kids, so it's easier to kind of have a little bit of time to plan where you're going to go in the season. It's mainly up to your significant other to kind of get you moved to the next place. So I think my wife prefers the off season since it's been that way the first time than this second time. So I prefer it in the off season. But like I said, my goal is to go out there and make pitches and compete and pitch deep in baseball games and do the best I can. And then everything else takes care of itself.
We had a guest on, I want to say it was last year, and I can't remember who it was now, but he got traded from Tampa Bay to Seattle and had to go middle of the season from Tampa to Seattle. I think his wife was pregnant.
Golly.
And just so much going on, and going from one half, and Tampa was his hometown, and then he gets traded and has to go out to
Northwest.
To the Northwest, and at the furthest place you can go, middle of the season. And it's literally pick up, go, and there's traveling secretaries or other personnel people that kind of put you up in a hotel and you just figure it out. For you, have you been able to get to Toronto yet, start figuring out where you're going to live and kind of settle in during the season, or is that still a little bit ways away? We're taping this early December.
Yeah, I think we haven't been to Toronto yet, to answer that question. We have talked to a few realtors up there, some players that I know just about that have played there and currently play there, about where to live. Most people live downtown because it's such a safe city to live in. You can walk to the field. Kids are good.
Yeah.
I'll probably ride a little scooter to the field if we find a place downtown.
I'm sure.
But being walking distance, being walking distance is probably going to be the way to go with kids and dogs. So we're looking at that. But my wife and I we're very type A and like to plan things out as much as possible just to have a roadmap of what we're going to go to. So yeah, going to Florida for the first time for spring training too. Already looking for places there. So it's a totally like a 180 for us in baseball because I spent all my time in Arizona and then in Milwaukee. So going to Florida spring training, then going to a different country is going to be a new challenge. But I'm really excited about it.
It's Dunedin, Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we're going to stay in Clearwater.
With the Blue Jays, Clearwater. Okay, it's a great area over there. My brother lives in Tampa, and it's beautiful there. What spring training wise? I think a lot of people don't understand this. You just said you had to find a place to stay.
Yeah.
So the team doesn't just say for 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is from February until the end of March.
Valentine's Day till end of March.
They don't just say, "Here, we're all staying in this complex. Here's a place to stay." You have to find your own place.
Yeah, when you have family, wife and kids and dogs, and our mother-in-law lives with us now, we got to find enough room for everybody. And the prices can be very high at that time because it's such a short-term lease.
6 weeks.
Yeah. 6 weeks, and it can be really expensive. So yeah, that's always tough. And I heard Florida's even tougher just because there's not as many places. Arizona, there's a lot more places, and everything's more centrally located with the teams.
Yeah.
Florida, you're driving across state to play a different team. So it's going to be different. But we found a couple places we're looking at right now, just to kind of see how we would live in that for 6 weeks. Looking through where the bedrooms are placed and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So a lot of logistical things behind the scenes that people don't understand about being a professional athlete as a baseball player alone, is you have to figure these things out because your family is what truly matters the most to you, and you want them to be comfortable while you're out there trying to perform and provide the income.
Absolutely. Chase Anderson is our guest here on Sports Spectrum, Toronto Blue Jays pitcher. These past couple of years for you have seen some good moments and some tough moments, some ups and downs, not being put on the playoff roster in 2018 and being able to pitch in the postseason, coming out of the bullpen a few times in 2019.
Right.
What's that been like for you, kind of the ebbs and flows of a guy who is typically a starting pitcher and coming out of the bullpen and then having, I guess it's got to hit the ego a little bit. Like, man,
it's funny.
Get a chance?
Yeah, it's funny. Like in baseball, they always say it'll humble you, and I feel like for me, God will put His fingerprint and like tell you when you need to do something, when you don't need to do something. I've always saw myself as a pretty humble guy, but I think inside sometimes being around the baseball atmosphere, the ego can sometimes take over, and I think those things of not getting put on the playoff roster in 2018 and making it this last year in the wild card game of 19 just shows, okay, you got to have that posture of humility. You have to live that way, and the Lord rewards you. But when you start to get out of that and you start to feel like you're in control of all the things in your life, He tends to humble you, and it's usually for a good reason. So, it's been ups and downs, but I feel like I've taken it well. And as a teammate, as a person, when I look back on my career, I want to be known as a really good teammate, an even better person than what my stats say, because I think that's going to last longer with the relationships you've built throughout your career in baseball.
What's that relationship with God like in those difficult moments as a baseball player? I mean, God is in with us in the hills and the valleys. We just did another taping here, and we were talking to someone about trials and struggles and some really deep, painful things, and he said that God is still constantly with him through the ups and downs, and that's where our faith and trust lies.
Right.
From a baseball perspective, when you're just having a bad game or you give up a couple home runs or you miss a starter, you're in the bullpen now in a foreign place coming in that you don't normally. Where's faith in that for you and trusting in God's plan and timing for all this?
Yeah, I learned back when I went back to AA in 2014 that I had no control of this baseball career thing. This baseball career projecting that I was going to get to the big leagues where I wanted to get to the big leagues. And I got humbled and sent back to AA at 26 years old.
After coming up to the majors.
Being put on the roster, going to AAA and having a terrible year, then going back to AA the next year.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. being in AAA, going back to AA. Okay, baseball might not be it might not work out.
Yeah.
I said a prayer on that day that I got sent down to AA. I was like, okay, Lord, I literally don't know what you're doing, but if this baseball thing is going to work out, it's going to work out in the way you want it to work out. And I was in AA for 6 weeks. Get called up to the big leagues on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo of 2014. Made my debut on the 11th and never looked back. And, as the peaks and valleys come with Major League Baseball, you look at the blessings of just getting to the big leagues as a feat, and then staying as long as I have is another feat. But the ups and downs, bullpen, getting traded, all these things, I feel like God just continues to mold me in the way that He wants me to be. And okay, Chase, when you feel like you're gonna take this thing by the reins and control it, I'm gonna show you that you're not really in control. And you're going to have to understand that this is for your good. And then Toronto, I get traded to Toronto, and they pick up the option of my contract. It's like, wow. I continue to look back and see how God has continued to bless me, and I do the best I can to stay faithful to what He wants me to do. And obedient is the word that I continue to think about. Is be obedient. Be obedient, because He's going to take care of us. He's going to provide regardless if it's baseball or something else, and then He continues to provide even more than I rightfully deserve. But His grace continues just to pour over my family. Super thankful, and then I think I need to do a better job sometimes of just, trusting and letting go, because I get so amped up, like, where are we going to be next? I was looking those first 4 days before my option got picked up for the Blue Jays getting traded. I'm like, what's going to happen? Because you don't know. That's the crazy thing about baseball. The uncertainty really can overwhelm you mentally sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Toronto, when I get traded there, and they pick it up, and so thankful for that, and just to kind of be the pitcher I know I can be and go there and make an impact on the young guys in that clubhouse. Like I said, it's a really cool thing. I feel like God is just having His fingerprint of positivity on my life, and I'm just going to continue to do the best I can to be obedient to what He has for me, and to really hopefully live out His will in my life and for my family.
We'll get back to our conversation with Chase Anderson from the Toronto Blue Jays in just a moment, but want to take a second to tell you about our Sports Spectrum magazine. And the foundation, the pillar of what this ministry was founded on, comes from the magazine. 1985 was the very first Sports Spectrum magazine, and 35 years later, it's still going strong. And this magazine is not your typical sports magazine. And like other publications, you're going to find the great stories and photos and interviews of some of the top athletes in the country. But you'll also read about how faith in Jesus, plays a role in these athletes' lives. They don't live to be defined by their sport. They lived to be defined by God. Published 4 times a year with occasional special issues, a couple bonus issues, Sports Spectrum's magazine is where sports and faith connect. It's perfect for the sports fan who loves Jesus, perfect for the sports fan who's curious about Jesus, and it's really even more perfect for the sports fan who has yet to discover Jesus, because in every single issue there is a gospel message detailing how readers can accept Christ into their lives. That's what it's all about. This Sports Spectrum magazine is suitable for all ages, and you can order your subscription and partner with our ministry right now by going to the website, sportsspectrum.com. It's $18 for an entire year subscription. Super cheap, $18. Go to sportsspectrum.com, and you click the magazine icon. You can subscribe right there, or you can give us a call toll-free, 866-821-2971. 866-821-2971, and subscribe to the Sports Spectrum magazine today. Let's get back to our conversation with Toronto Blue Jays pitcher Chase Anderson here on Sports Spectrum. Who are some of the guys in the clubhouse this past year? I know you're not there anymore, but in Milwaukee, that really helped you along in your faith and kind of enriched you and encouraged you to stay faithful, because it's hard. I mean, we've even having these couple days, these conversations of being connected and staying connected to the Lord during a long baseball season when you're playing every day and at night, including Sundays. You have baseball chapel, but that constant daily connection to God is very difficult without having others in your life encourage you. Is there a couple guys maybe on the Brewers that helped you in that?
I think the one would be Brent Suter, which him and his wife will be here tomorrow. and he'll get to sit down and talk to him. He's a really great guy. He's always a staple in Bible study on Tuesdays and in chapel on Sundays. We encourage each other to, stay rooted in our faith, to be, if it's 5 minutes a day, to be engaged with the Lord, if it's in prayer, whatever it is, just to be connected with the Lord at some time of day. That's the hardest part for me, is like, I like to be consistent in the morning, but on Sunday day games or Wednesday day games, it's like I'm getting up and getting dressed and getting on the plane. It's hard to stay, because I feel like if I'm consistent on the time of day, I'm in the Word consistently throughout months to come. So that's the hard part, is like, okay, on that Sunday, I got to figure out what I need to do to stay connected with the Lord. And I sometimes use the plane ride to read a little devotional or to do something. So I know that my day is much better when I have, if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, hopefully 20 minutes with the Lord, so much better. It ends up so much better when I go put my head down that night. So it's huge. So Brent Suter is definitely one of the guys that keeps me straight in my faith.
Do you have a rhythm or a discipline that you do, not just in connection with God, but maybe that you are, when you're pitching and it's Chase Anderson day, here we go.
Right.
Do you have and is it different than other days, but do you have like a rhythm and a discipline of things that you have to do, maybe kind of superstitions, if you will, that you kind of stay consistent with? I
think the main one is what I read in my Bible. I read the same verses. I read the same stuff that my grandmother highlighted in the Bible she gave to me when she passed away. I think I was supposed to find it in after high school, because it was dated May of 06, but I didn't get it till she passed away in August of 09. But I read these verses in there, the stuff that she had kind of written in there. I wrote them in my Bible. I kind of go through the same routine of reading that. Then she wrote a letter to me that she put on the front with a paperclip. I read that. That's
cool.
probably the biggest thing, because it gives me perspective. Like, I'm sitting in a major league clubhouse that I never thought I'd do this. It's been a dream of mine to be here. It brings me down to pinch myself to understand, okay, you're lucky to be in this position. And even over here, we were eating lunch with my wife's family. And we're just talking about how lucky we are to be in this position, and I'm living out my dream and getting paid a crazy amount of money to do what I love. I mean, how many people get to do that? If you're honest with yourself, it's really like far and few between. Because I mean, I'm playing baseball. I played it since I was 5 years old, and I'm getting paid millions of dollars. I mean, what could be better? So I try to be optimistic, because there is hardships, and it is hard with the family and travel, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm very lucky, very blessed.
Chase Anderson's our guest here on Sports Spectrum. A couple more questions with Chase. So you also became a dad for the second time in 2019.
I did.
But now you got a little girl. You have
Yes.
a son, and that little girl, I don't have a son, but I have nephews, but I have that little girl, and I know what it's like to have a daughter. What's that been like for you in adjusting to being daddy's little girl now?
She was born in March, so I didn't get too much time with her before she went to Milwaukee, and then the season I'm gone so much. But now the off season has hit. I'm like, man, this girl she starts crawling, she starts moving around, she's making noises and feeding her a bottle, and try not to change too many diapers. My wife's better at that than I am.
That's right.
But anyways, I really just enjoy being around my kids, because I don't get to do that in the season, as much as I'd like. So the off season is a special time, special season of our life. They're so little. This is kind of our first trip without them to come here to PAO. So we're kind of missing them, but it's a good thing for the wife and I. But yeah, you look at them on the FaceTime and like, they look so much bigger than they did 2 days ago. So having 2 kids, and then having a girl as a father, it's good days ahead and hard days ahead as well.
Now, I love your wife, Anna. She's awesome, and I've met her and talked to her, and she has a good head on her shoulders. You can tell she
does.
I don't know I'm probably guessing that you would say, none of this would work without her.
Oh, no doubt about it.
But what I was going to say is the idea of lifestyle in the off season versus lifestyle in season. Suddenly, she has Chase home for 3-4 months,
right,
and has to adjust to that, because she's probably created a routine and rhythm for herself.
I disrupt that routine, if you will, a little bit.
But then it's like you disrupt it, and then you're gone, and back out to the baseball world. What's that adjustment like?
Yeah, and then we have my mother-in-law lives with us now to help take care of the kids while I'm traveling, just to give my wife a little bit of time to decompress, if you will.
Yeah.
And to have someone there when you're just talking to kids all day long, you can drive you crazy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So she needs to have that sounding board, and no better person than her mom. So that's been a huge blessing. Obviously, it's a transition, her coming into our space and her giving up her life to help us. So it's big on both ends. We're both sacrificing something, but in the end, it's going to be such a blessing to our kids, which is the main thing. So but me coming in the off season of like, okay, what do you want me to help you with? She's been doing everything the whole season. Feed the baby a bottle, clean the room up, do whatever you need me to do.
Yeah.
Pick up the dog, whatever, just walk the dogs. So yeah, that's the fine line of being like, okay, I want to help you, but I don't want to step on your toes too much, because I know your routine works and it works well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
stay out of the way.
Stay out of the way. But I want to be. I mean, God's calling me to be a dad, a husband, and a father, and I'm supposed to lead this household in a spiritual matter, and physically. Like, I need to take care of my kids. I need to be there. I need to be present with my wife. I need to be all these things. That continues to challenge me every day, because I know that my selfish desires tend to take me away from those things.
Yeah.
But as a believer, you need to lean in on those things and step into the space and be the man God has called you to be, because you have 2 kids, you have a wife, you have a mother-in-law, you have responsibilities that are just bigger than just baseball.
Last question, and the question that we ask on the podcast is always, what is God teaching you right now? Instead, I'll ask you, what has God taught you since we last had you on?
Yeah.
So it was about a year ago, the podcast released, and it was again in the off season, getting ready for 2019. So here we are, you're going into year 7, 2020, new team, dad to 2 now, not just to 1 anymore. What has God taught you over these last 12 months or so? And what's the lesson that you've learned and you say, yeah, I clearly see what the Lord was doing here?
Yeah, I would say it's continuing to teach me how to be present when I'm home, because baseball, you're worrying about your next outing or this and that, and baseball can really consume your life, because that's what we do for a living. That's what provides the income, all that kind of stuff. But you have to have that balance. Yeah. So I would say he's continuing to teach me to have that being present at home.
Yep.
And then while I'm on the road, to make sure that I keep my posture of humility and my eyes on him when there's so many temptations out there. And as a parent, having a son and a daughter, you see all the stuff that can happen when you don't, and how families can be wrecked. So I think my biggest thing is I need to understand, okay, when I'm home, I need to be present, I need to be dad. And then he continues to teach me patience. When you have kids, patience are just something that, man, I thought I had a long leash of patience, but when your kids sometimes bring out the worst in you, and you don't mean to, but you're trying to discipline your kids. So patience is one of them, but I think he's taught me how to continue to be more of a well-rounded man, if you will, with catering to my wife and serving her as much as I can, which obviously I can do a better job at that. And then being the father to my kids, and being a baseball player and a teammate and a friend. So all those things, he's continuing to mold me in the way he wants me to be. And I can see his fingerprint on then sending us to Toronto, the plan he has for us there. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to just continuing to hopefully be obedient to his word and understand that, he really has a bigger purpose in this than just baseball.
He is Chase Anderson, pitching in the American League East now.
Tough division.
They're a very tough division. You got the Red Sox, Yankees, and the Rays had a great year last year.
Orioles are rebuilding.
Baltimore is rebuilding, and they're always going to be a tough out. So this will be a fun season to watch you in Toronto. We'll obviously be keeping an eye, and thanks for being here on the show. Always wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, Jason. I always appreciate you guys having me on.
Many thanks to Chase Anderson from the Toronto Blue Jays as he gets ready for 2020, a brand new season upon us, Major League Baseball. Chase Anderson going to be one of the starters, one of the integral parts of that rotation for the Blue Jays battling in the American League East here in 2020. Many thanks to Chase for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. And many thanks to you for listening. There's so many great ways that you can stay in touch with us. We want to encourage you to check out our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. There's lots of video content on our YouTube channel that you can watch and see, especially a lot of the interviews that we did recently at the Super Bowl in Miami, including all of our podcasts as well. Check out that YouTube channel. I think you'll enjoy seeing some of the content that we have going on over there. And then our website, that's really the home base, the bookmark, if you will, for Sports Spectrum is our website, sportspectrum.com. You can see articles in there all day long on different stories from athletes and other people in the world of sports talking about their faith in Jesus. There's a daily devotional every morning at 6 a.m. Eastern that can get your day started right with the Lord right there on sportspectrum.com. And then every single podcast, our Sports Spectrum podcast on demand, is available for you to subscribe and listen to. Tons of interviews that we've done over the past 3 years, over 400 interviews with different people in the world of sports, intersecting in the world of faith. Check it all out at sportspectrum.com. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast with Chase Anderson. We'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.